Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back today to talk more about email etiquette. Please make sure that you have notes. I did attach a sample note page to the assignment sheet for today. You may use this, or you can take your notes on a separate sheet of paper. Either way, make sure that you are taking notes. You will need them later on this week. Okay, so what is email etiquette? Email etiquette is a general set of expectations regarding how people should communicate when sending electronic mail. When people are receiving a professional style email, they expect it to be written in a professional format. So when you're writing teachers, we have certain expectations that we should see in your email. Why does it matter? What's the perk? When you write professional emails, you want to have, you want to show professionalism. You want it to come across like you are somebody who knows what they're talking about. You want it to be efficient. Writing emails that are clear and eloquent will increase the effectiveness of your communication. So if you're trying to convince something or, request something, it's going to come across a lot better if you write it in an efficient manner. Respect. If you're writing an email, you're often making a request and you want your audience to respect you as a person. In order for your audience to respect you as a person, you have to show respect to them in your email. Common sense. An element of basic humanity is being kind to others. Angry, hateful email is counterintuitive to that. A lot of times we start writing emails whenever we're mad. And so there's a real simple fix to that we're going to get to in one of our tips to follow. So when you're writing to different audiences, you're going to write in a different way. When you're writing a boss, it's going to sound different than if you're writing a parent or a friend or a pastor. When you're working at work and you're talking to your boss, do you talk to your boss the same way that you talk to your mom and dad? Probably not, or at least you shouldn't be, right? When you're talking to your best friend, does it sound the same way that it would sound if you were talking to your parent? No. Right? When you're talking to your friend, does it sound the same way as if you were talking to your pastor? No. We talk to all these people in different ways when we're face-to-face communicating. And the same thing should be true whenever we're emailing. So the same type of word choice and format that we write our words in, it should be similar to how we would talk to that person face-to-face. So in your academic career, there will be many times when you need to email a teacher. When you're doing so, you need to keep the following tips a priority. Keep this in mind. You're going to be emailing teachers probably quite a bit in the next few weeks. And then furthermore, the rest of your high school career, and then in college, if you choose to do so, or trade school, you're also going to be emailing bosses probably as well. A lot of companies communicate almost solely through the email. And so we have to make sure that we know how to write and format a professional style email. Tip number one, use a professional email address. This is a big one. We like to use our creativity when creating our emails and social media handles. And it's fine for social media, but when you're using an email address that is going to be for professional emails, it needs to be a professional email. So your teacher's not going to appreciate receiving an email from somebody who calls themselves Sir Mix-a-Lot Ninja at ymail.com. Hey, that doesn't sound professional, right? When you're at school, you have an email that is professional. It's your ID number at ogist.net. And so that's a great way to show your professionalism whenever you're emailing your teachers, email from your school account. Okay, that's what you're using anyway to do all your Google Classroom stuff. Email tip number 2, select a professional font. Google's pretty cool because there's a lot of different fonts that you can use and a lot of different colors that you can use. But you need to remember that less is more whenever you're doing your professional emails. Keep it in black letters. You don't need to write in orange because it's Orange Grove. You don't need to have a background color. And it can just be in the regular email font that comes, right? We don't have to put it in a special font. So keep the font professional make it look like something that you would expect to see in a professional document, and then we'll be good. Include a clear, direct subject line. We did talk about this yesterday. When you're emailing your teachers, they have about 150 students each, right? And so that's a lot of kids. So we need to make sure that we have our whole name. We need to make sure that our class period is in the subject line, and we need to include the topic that we're writing about. All three of those things should be in your subject line of every email that you write to your teachers. So for example, the subject line for this person is Molly Weller, first hour, they don't have periods, they have hours, and reading journal. Okay, has her whole name, what class period she's in, and what she's writing about. Begin with a professional salutation. Dear Mrs. Cruz, good morning, Dr. Evelyn. There's no, hi, Mrs. Cruz, or good to see ya, Mrs. Cruz. Nothing like that. It's very formal, dear, and then her name with a comma, good morning, and then their name. Either of these would work great. Dear sir or madam, that's okay, but it might be stretching it a little bit when you're talking to your teacher, because dear sir or madam is usually for people who you don't actually know their names, right? Okay. Tip number 5, make sure that when you use your recipient's name, that's the person who's going to receive the email, when you write their name, it's spelled correctly. That is extremely important. Now, your teacher might laugh it off, but a prospective employer or your boss is not. So make sure that you're spelling it correctly. It looks really lazy when you email somebody with a request, but you weren't thoughtful enough to take the time to double check the spelling of their name. So if you're not going to take the time to double check the spelling of your name, is that person going to take the time to do your request? Probably not. Okay, it's a sign of disrespect. So make sure that you spell their name correctly. Avoid exclamation points when you use exclamation points, which I do all the time. They're not very formal. They look like a kid wrote it, right? So try to steer clear of exclamation points. You can use them every once in a while, one at a time. Don't put 3 like I do. One at a time, and use it sparingly. Do not use all caps. When you use all caps, it means you're screaming at them. And so when you use all caps in your paper, you're shouting at your audience. Do you understand? I wasn't yelling, but that's because I'm in a building with a whole bunch of people and nobody's making any noise, and that would be really embarrassing. But you get the point. No all caps. When you use all caps, it should be to emphasize something, right? So if I said, you need to go to the store and buy eggs and milk, I'm reminding you, don't forget the milk, right? So I'm emphasizing it. All right, avoid sarcasm and also avoid winky faces or other emojis. It's very difficult to decipher tone in an email, and emojis are not professional. Okay, so thanks for the D you gave me, wink. Yeah, that's sarcasm. And I already told you, right, sarcasm is not accepted in emails because nobody knows what tone you were using when you wrote it, right? So if you were playing, thanks for the D you gave me, but if I read it, I can read it like, thanks for the D you gave me. And it's not the same. It's not what was meant, but it's how I read it. It's how I interpret what you wrote. And so do not put sarcasm in your emails, because chances are the person reading it isn't going to read it in a sarcastic manner. Okay, and it's going to come off rude and disrespectful. So steer clear of that. Don't email when angry. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so your teacher gave you a 0 for an assignment that you know you turned in. In fact, it's an assignment that she gave you back in class, and it had a 99 on it. And she put a 0 in the grade book. Now, on behalf of all teachers, she probably accidentally did that. And her policy is probably, if you find a mistake, just let me know in a nice way, right? But instead, you got mad. because clearly that teacher has something against you. And so you go home and you write an email to her, and it's just rude, and it's in all caps, and it's just full of meanness. Don't email somebody or call and talk to them or communicate with people when you are really mad. Give it time. Take a walk. Get something to eat. Play a video game. Watch a movie. Do something that's going to take your mind off of whatever you're mad about and give yourself time to kind of calm down. Because if you don't calm down first, whatever comes out of your mouth or your fingertips, it's not going to be appropriate, and it's not going to be received well. So if the subject of the email is a sensitive one, it's best to discuss it in person. Words are read differently than they are heard. As I said, it's not the tone that you use when you write it. It's the tone that I hear when I read it. And they're not always going to mesh completely. Okay? They're not going to fit together like puzzle pieces because we're two different people. Right? And you have no idea what that person that's reading your email has gone through that day. You don't know what kind of mood they're in. You don't know anything about what's going to be going through their head when they read your email. And so you have to be careful about including things that you wrote in an angry fashion. Okay? So don't email or talk to people when you're mad. Calm down first. That's a very important thing to learn about life in general. Believe me. Email tip number 10. Avoid blaming and excuses. Take responsibility of whatever happened. Take ownership of the situation. Don't blame your pet. My dog ate my homework. Okay? It's not fair that you gave me a 0 because my dog ate it. Don't blame your parents. Don't blame your teacher. Don't blame your little brother, your little sister, your big brother, big sister, and don't blame the president. You get my point. Don't blame other people. Take responsibility for your actions. Even if you're not to blame, take the blame for it. Take responsibility for what happened. It's going to come across a lot better that way. Email tip number 11, be clear and mention specifics. Your teacher has a lot of students. Like I said, your teachers this year have about 150 students each. That's a lot of people that they're going to communicate with and deal with on a daily basis. So you need to tell them exactly what your request is, what your question is, what you're referring to. Okay? Today in class, you handed back my paper. But your teacher needs to know which class. Your teacher needs to know which paper. You have to give me specifics, okay? Be concise. Say what you need to say in a few sentences or less, okay? You don't need to expand and use all your vocabulary to explain one tiny little thing. Just use as few words as possible because that's what an email is, okay? It's like writing a poem. You squeeze everything into the smallest amount of space possible in a way that it can still be understood completely and clearly. Avoid using the word you if at all possible. In a formal document, you do not use the word you, okay? It puts the recipient on the defensive. You said you need to do this. When are you going to grade my paper? What are you so busy doing? We're not going to use the word you, okay? Just take it out of the equation. Don't email asking for extra credit. Most of the time students do this. It's because they haven't completed some assignments that they were supposed to do, okay? And so the end of the 9 weeks comes and you're failing. And so you want extra credit because you want to pass. Well, the problem is you already missed that deadline, right? The time to get your care about your grade was whenever I gave you the assignment. So if you email it to me, I'm going to get mad and I'm probably not going to give you a positive answer. But if you come to me in person and you talk to me one-on-one, face-to-face, and you tell me about the situation and you tell me what's going on, then there's a chance that you're going to get at least the opportunity to possibly do extra credit. Okay. As a general rule of thumb, Mrs. Claypack does not offer extra credit, but you know, there's always extenuating circumstances. So it's best if you talk to me and have a conversation with me face to face. That's also a sign of maturity, okay? Number 15, include both your first and last name in your signature block. Thank you, Elmer Fudd. Sincerely, Elmer Fudd. My best, Elmer Fudd, okay? Your teacher has 150 students on average. You need to put your last name, okay? I have several of the students that have the same first name, and so we need to make sure that our last name is in that email as well. Make sure that you proofread your emails, use complete sentences, use appropriate grammar. Otherwise, you look like you are a lot younger than you are, okay? That you're less intelligent than you are. We need to do our best to do that. Your email has spell check integrated into it. You can also get Grammarly. It's an extension that you can get, and you can get it for free. You don't have to get the paid version. And that Grammarly extension will check your emails for you as well. So it's pretty useful. Include a compliment and or a note of thankfulness, okay? Even if you don't mean it, even if it's in the heat of the moment and you're mad, say something nice, okay? You should always compliment people before you complain about them. That's another good suggestion for life, guys and girls. Compliments and gratuity make your audience more receptive to your request. Everybody likes to hear nice things about themselves, okay? Everybody likes to feel appreciated. So when you include something that demonstrates that, it's going to go a lot farther, okay? They're going to be more receptive to your request, and they also may help you, and they also help you to come across as a kind person who's not completely narcissistic. And a narcissistic person is a person who only cares about themselves, and everything revolves around them. Also, we don't want to come across that way, obviously. So always include a compliment, say something nice about them, or thank them for something that they've done, because it's going to go a long way. Allow for response time. Allow your teacher at least 24 hours to reply to your email. Believe it or not, teachers actually do have lives, okay? If you're emailing me something after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's what time I get off work. And I may or may not answer your email until the next day. And that's okay. You need to give your teachers a sufficient amount of time. Never email asking for something ASAP. That's rude. That's not caring about the other person's time, right? And so we need to show kindness to each other, and that's one way that we can, by understanding that they have time, that they may not have time to do what we want them to do right when we want them to do it. Be aware of high and low register. A high register tone is used when you are talking to a superior, like a boss or a teacher. A superior just means somebody who's in charge of you. Thank you so much for helping me study for the upcoming novel test. And a low register tone is used when you're talking to a friend or a family member. It was so awesome hanging with you today, studying for that test. Do you see the difference in the way that they wrote those two? One of them is more formal, more professional, and one of them is in an informal way because it's somebody that you have a relationship with. That's not to say you don't have a relationship with your teacher, but it's a different type of relationship. And so we talk to them in a different type of way. Email tip number 20. And this is the last one. If you have no choice but to write a lengthier email, use bullets where possible. Bulleted questions or statements are easier to read. They help the reader mentally organize the thoughts, and they help the reader remember what you wrote in emails than lengthy paragraphs. So we're not going to put everything in a big paragraph. If you can, use bullets to break it up. Remember that emails need to be easy to read. And so when you have a lot of information to put on an email, break it up into smaller pieces in order for the reader to be able to understand it better. If the content of the email is on the negative side at all, use the flattery sandwich approach. So you flatter them or issue a positive comment, and followed by your request or your complaint that's written in a kindly phrased way, not in a rude or arrogant way. And then you give another piece of flattery or positivity, or you thank them for something. Okay, and so when you sandwich those together, the main thing that you're going to see here is positivity, right? it's harder to see that complaint because you're putting it in the middle of a cloud of kindness, right? And so what's going to come up, they're going to be more likely to listen to you and try to help you